He spent years treating her love like it was guaranteed. By the time he reached for her, she had already learned how to let go. The kitchen was quiet in that early morning way that felt heavier than silence. Dawn filtered through the blinds, turning the countertops pale and flat. Like a photograph drained of color. She stood at the sink, rinsing a mug that had already been clean. The habit was old. So was the loneliness. Behind her, he sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, the glow lighting his face in soft blue. He didn't look up. He rarely did anymore. "You're up early," he said, not unkindly. "Just distracted. I couldn't sleep," she replied. That was true most mornings now. She set the mug in the rack, careful not to let it clink too loudly. Everything about her movements had become careful, quiet, considerate in ways that no longer felt mutual. He glanced at his watch. "I've got a long day. Meetings back to back." She nodded, though he wasn't watching. The words sat between them, familiar and worn, a routine that didn't require response. She wondered, not for the first time, when conversation had turned into a checklist of announcements. She poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter, cradling the mug in both hands. The warmth felt grounding, real. "You didn't touch dinner last night," she said, her voice neutral. He shrugged. "I wasn't hungry." She almost laughed at that. Hunger had nothing to do with it. They had eaten at opposite ends of the table, the television murmuring in the background, a couple on screen arguing passionately about something that mattered. She remembered thinking how loud love used to be. She remembered when theirs had been too. He stood, buttoning his shirt as he walked toward the door, efficient, polished, always moving forward. "Do you need anything today?" he asked, already slipping into his jacket. The question sounded generous. It always did. She looked at him then, really looked. The faint lines at the corners of his eyes. The familiar slope of his shoulders. The man she had built a life with, brick by brick, compromise by compromise. "I'm fine," she said. He nodded, relieved. She saw it now, the ease with which her self-sufficiency reassured him. As if her not asking meant everything was exactly as it should be. He leaned in, brushed a quick kiss against her cheek. "Have it again. The kind that missed the skin by a fraction of an inch. See you tonight." The door closed softly behind him. She stayed where she was, listening to the sound of his car pulling away. Only when it was gone did she let out the breath she'd been holding. The house felt larger without him. Or maybe emptier. She wasn't sure which scared her more. Later that morning, she sat at the dining table with a folder open in front of her. No papers inside yet. Just a placeholder. A promise she hadn't fully made to herself. She traced the edge of the folder with her finger, the wood cool beneath her skin. This table had seen birthdays, holidays, arguments whispered after midnight so the kids wouldn't hear. It had also seen silence. A lot of it. Her phone buzzed. A message from him, running late. "Don't wait up." She stared at the screen longer than necessary. "Don't wait up. As if she still did. She stood and walked into the bedroom, opening the drawer where she kept things she didn't use often anymore. Scarves, old jewelry. The ring he'd given her on a cold evening years ago when he promised she was his future. She took it out now, resting it in her palm. It felt heavier than it used to. She thought about all the times she'd swallowed words to keep the peace. All the evenings she'd waited for him to notice her quiet unhappiness and ask the right question he never had. Not because he was cruel. Because he was certain she would stay. Certain love, once given, didn't need tending. She set the ring down on the dresser, beside a framed photo of them laughing on a beach long ago, sunburned, younger, still, reaching for each other without thinking. Her reflection in the mirror looked composed, older, not unhappy exactly, just waked up that evening. He came home later than promised. She heard his keys, his footsteps, the familiar clearing of his throat before he spoke. I'm home. She was sitting in the living room, lights low, a book open but unread. He stopped when he saw her expression. Everything okay? He asked Dot. She met his eyes, calm and steady. I think, she said slowly, we need to talk. He hesitated, something flickering across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or the faintest hint of fear. About what? He asked Dot. She closed the book, placing it gently on the table. Dot, about how long love can survive. When it's never chosen, the word talk hung in the air longer than it should have. He stayed where he was, jacket still on, briefcase resting by the door like an excuse. His eyes searched her face, not with anger, not even defensiveness, more like someone trying to read fine print he'd skipped for years. Can it wait? He asked. It's been a long day. She nodded once. It always has. That stopped him. He set the briefcase down slowly and loosened his tie, the movement practiced, automatic. For years, she had watched those motions with affection. Tonight, she watched them like a stranger learning his habits. They sat across from each other on the couch, not touching. There was space between them that had not existed at the beginning of their marriage, space that had grown quietly. Without announcement, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You're scaring me a little, he said, trying to smile. That wasn't my intention. Then what is? She took a breath. She had rehearsed this moment in fragments late at night, early in the morning, but now that it was here, she felt no rush. No tremor. I don't feel chosen anymore, she said. He blinked. What does that mean? It means I feel like a convenience, a certainty, something you assume will always be there, no matter how little attention you give it. That's not fair, he said quickly. I work hard for this family. I know, she replied, and I'm grateful for that, but provision isn't presence. He frowned, as if that distinction had never been put into words before. I'm here, he said. Aren't I? She looked at him then, really looked. The man who had once driven 3 hours just to surprise her with dinner. The man who used to reach for her hand without thinking. The man who now believed showing up physically was the same as showing up emotionally. You're in the room, she said gently, but you've been somewhere else for a long time. Silence followed. Not the heavy kind. This one felt tentative, almost fragile. He rubbed his hands together. Why didn't you say something sooner? I did, she said, just not loudly. She watched the memory flicker across his face, moments he had dismissed as stress, fatigue, passing moods. He had heard her, just never listened long enough. I didn't think it was this bad, he said. She nodded. That's part of it. He leaned back, exhaling. So what are you saying? She hesitated, not because she didn't know, but because saying it out loud made it real. I'm saying, I don't want to wake up 10 years from now and realize I spent my life waiting to matter. His jaw tightened. You matter to you? She asked quietly. Or to the version of me that makes your life easier? The question landed between them. Unanswered. He stood abruptly and walked toward the window, staring out into the dark. The city lights reflected faintly in the glass. He pressed his hand against the pane, as if grounding himself. I never meant to hurt you, he said. I believe that, she replied. But intent doesn't erase impact. He turned to face her, eyes sharp now. So what do you want? Counseling? Time apart? She considered the options. They sounded reasonable, sensible, familiar. I want to feel like I'm someone you choose, she said. Not someone you come home to because it's expected. That's not something I can just flip a switch on, he said. I know, she said. That's why I'm not asking for promises. He studied her. Then what are you asking for? She stood, smoothing the front of her sweater, a gesture that surprised even her. I'm asking for honesty, she said, about whether you still want this life with me or whether you've just been staying because it's comfortable. The word comfortable seemed to offend him. I'm not some careless husband who doesn't care, he said. I didn't say you were, she replied. I said you stopped choosing. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. For the first time, he seemed unsure which version of himself to defend. They stood there, facing each other. The distance between them measured not in feet, but in years of unspoken disappointment. I need some air, he said finally, reaching for his keys again. She nodded. Take your time. At the door, he hesitated. His hand hovered over the knob. You're not going anywhere tonight, are you? He asked, trying to sound casual. She met his gaze, calm and unreadable. No, she said. Not tonight. Relief crossed his face, brief but unmistakable. The door closed behind him. Harder this time, she waited until she heard his footsteps fade before returning to the bedroom. The ring still sat where she'd left it, catching the light from the bedside lamp. She picked it up again. Turning it slowly between her fingers, she didn't put it back on. Instead, she placed it inside the folder, waiting on the dining table. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel afraid of what might come next. Morning arrived without resolution. Sunlight slipped through the curtains in thin, cautious lines, as if even the day itself was unsure how to enter the room. She lay awake long before the alarm, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing beside her. He slept deeply. Always had. She watched him for a moment, the familiar rise and fall of his chest, the faint crease between his brows that never fully smoothed out anymore. Once, she would have reached for him, brushed that crease away with her thumb. Today, she didn't move. When the alarm finally sounded, he stirred, groaning softly. Already? He muttered. She swung her legs out of bed. It's late. He checked the time and sat up quickly. I've got an early call. Of course you do, she thought. She went through her morning routine quietly, brushing her teeth while he scanned emails on his phone, already elsewhere. The mirror reflected two people sharing a space. Not a moment. At the kitchen counter, she poured oatmeal into a bowl and added berries with deliberate care. He poured coffee, drank it standing up. You didn't sleep much, he said, glancing at her. I slept enough. He nodded, accepting the answer without pressing. That, too, had become familiar, his relief when things didn't require follow-up. I'll be back late again, he said. There's a dinner with the board. She set her spoon down. Okay, he hesitated, as if sensing something unfinished. We'll talk tonight, he added, when I'm not rushed. She met his eyes. We've said that before. The words weren't sharp. They didn't need to be. He exhaled, frustrated not at her exactly, but at the situation. I'm trying. She believed that too. He was trying in the ways he knew how, just not in the ways that reached her anymore. After he left, the house settled into stillness. She cleaned up slowly, not because it needed it, but because movement helped her think. Later, she folded laundry at the dining table. His shirts, her sweaters, the simple intimacy of shared fabric. She held one of his shirts up, the faint scent of his cologne still clinging to it. There had been a time when that scent made her smile. Now, it only reminded her. How rarely he leaned close enough for her to notice. Her phone buzzed this time. Not from him. A message from her sister-in-law. A photo of a family gathering from years ago. Everyone smiling, arms around one another. Her and him in the center, bodies angled toward each other naturally. Effortlessly. Miss this, the message read. She stared at the photo longer than she meant to. She missed it too. But missing something didn't mean it could be reclaimed. In the afternoon, she drove across town to meet an old friend for coffee. They sat by the window, watching people hurry past with places to be and reasons to go. You look tired, Her friend said gently, I am, she admitted, but not the kind of tired sleep fixes. Her friend studied her. Have you told him? She stirred her coffee, watching the cream swirl. I've told him pieces. He hears the words. He just doesn't feel the weight. And how long are you willing to carry it alone? The question lingered after they parted ways. That evening, she cooked dinner anyway. Have it again. He didn't come home in time to eat it hot. She wrapped the leftovers and put them in the fridge without resentment. Just acceptance dot when he finally arrived. His energy filled the room, phone calls, emails, the lingering buzz of accomplishment. You should have come, he said, loosening his tie. They asked about you. She smiled faintly. Did they? He nodded, already distracted. We should host something soon. She watched him talk about menus and dates, plans built on the assumption that she would continue to organize, to host, to support. He paused mid-sentence. What? You talk about our life like I'm already agreed, she said. Well, aren't you? She set her glass down. That's what we need to talk about. He frowned. We already talked. We touched the surface, she corrected. That's not the same thing. He rubbed the back of his neck. I don't understand why everything suddenly feels like it's on the line. Because it's not sudden for me, she said quietly. It's just finally visible. He sat across from her now, the table between them a familiar boundary. You're still here, he said. That has to count for something. It does, she replied. But staying isn't the same as choosing. He looked at her as if that distinction troubled him. Are you thinking about leaving? He asked Dot. She didn't answer right away. I'm thinking about myself, she said. For the first time in a long time. His expression shifted, not anger, not fear exactly. Something closer to uncertainty. He reached for her hand, then stopped, letting it fall back to the table. I never thought you'd be the one to walk away, he said softly. She met his gaze, steady and calm. I never thought I'd be the one who had to, she replied. That night, as he fell asleep beside her once more, she stared at the ceiling, listening to the quiet, not emptiness this. Time. Possibility. She woke before him again, not because she couldn't sleep, but because she no longer wanted to lie, still waiting for him to wake first. The habit felt symbolic now, like an old agreement she hadn't remembered signing. She dressed quietly and went for a walk, while the neighborhood was still dim and hushed. Lawns glistened with dew. A few porch lights remained on, reluctant to let go of the night. She liked this hour. No expectations, no conversations to manage. When she returned, he was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. I didn't hear you leave, he said. I didn't want to wake you. He slid 1 mug toward her. A small gesture, thoughtful, late, about last night, he began. I've been thinking. She wrapped her hands around the mug but didn't drink. So have I. He waited, watching her carefully now, as if afraid she might disappear if he blinked. I don't want us to drift, he said. I don't want to lose you. The words landed softly. Once, they would have been enough. She looked at him, not with doubt, but with clarity. Do you know when I felt us drifting? She asked. He shook his head. Years ago, she said. When I stopped telling you how my day really went because you were always tired. When I learned to solve things alone so I wouldn't add to your stress. He frowned. I never asked you to do that. I know, she said. That's the part you missed. He took a sip of his coffee, then set it down untouched. So what do we do now? She considered the question. It sounded reasonable, responsible, the kind people admired. I think, she said slowly. We sit with the truth instead of rushing to fix it. That sounds like doing nothing, he replied. It's not, she said. It's listening without trying to erase the discomfort. He exhaled. I'm not good at that. She smiled faintly. I know. Later that day, She drove to an office she'd passed 100 times without noticing. A modest building with neutral walls and a discreet sign. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and paper. The woman across the desk spoke calmly, professionally, without judgment. Asked questions, explained options, didn't rush her. When she left, a thin stack of papers rested in her bag. Not a decision, just information. Still, her hands trembled slightly as she started the car. That evening, he tried harder. He asked about her day, put his phone face down on the counter. Listened longer than usual. She answered honestly but carefully. She could feel him watching her, measuring, trying to understand how far away she already was. During dinner, he reached for her hand. This time, she let him. His thumb brushed against her skin. Tentative, almost apologetic. "I don't want to be the reason you feel invisible," he said. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. "Then don't be," she replied. Afterward, she washed dishes while he dried. They moved around each other with the familiarity of a long marriage, bodies anticipating space, timing learned over decades. "You remember when we used to dance in here?" he said suddenly. She smiled despite herself. "We didn't have much room. You didn't care." "No," she said softly. "I didn't." He laughed quietly. "We were younger. We were choosing each other," she corrected. The laughter faded. That night, she lay awake again. But this time she wasn't counting the ways she felt alone. She was noticing how peaceful her mind felt when she stopped bracing herself in the early hours. She slipped out of bed and went to the dining table. The folder waited where she'd left it. She opened it, slid the ring out, and placed it on the table beside her. She didn't cry. She simply sat there, feeling the weight of years settle into something manageable. When dawn arrived, she returned to the bedroom and lay beside him. He stirred, half awake, reaching for her instinctively. She let him find her hand, but she didn't intertwine their fingers. Later that morning, as he left for work, he paused longer than usual at the door. "We're okay," he said. "More hope than certainty." She met his gaze. "We're honest," she replied. "That's different." He nodded slowly, as if trying to accept that distinction. After he left, she stood alone in the quiet house and realized something that surprised her. She wasn't waiting anymore. She was deciding. The house was still. When she woke, not the familiar quiet of early mornings, but something deeper, final, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. She lay there for a moment, listening. No footsteps. No shower running. He had already left. That, too, felt symbolic. She got up slowly and dressed with care. Not for him. For herself. A simple blouse. Comfortable shoes. The coat she always saved for proper outings. As if today required dignity. In the kitchen, she noticed the mug he'd left in the sink, unrinsed. A small thing. Once, she would have sighed and taken care of it without thinking. She didn't. She made coffee for one and drank it standing up, staring out the window as the neighborhood came alive. A dog barked. A car door slammed. Ordinary life continuing without permission. At the dining table, the folder waited. She opened it and reviewed the papers again. Not because she needed to, but because the ritual steadied. Her names, dates, clear. Language that didn't soften reality or ask for compromise. This was not an act of anger. It was an act of clarity. She walked through the house once more, touching familiar things without sentimentality. The arm of the couch, the bookshelf they'd assembled together, the framed photo of the kids at the beach. She left the photo where it was. In the bedroom, she packed a single suitcase. Not everything, just enough. Clothes she liked, shoes that fit her life now, the scarf she wore when she needed courage. She paused at the dresser. The ring lay inside the folder, no longer something she carried on her body. She didn't look for a replacement. There was nothing to replace. Before leaving, she wrote a note. Not long. Not dramatic. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I stopped feeling alive. I hope one day you'll understand the difference. She placed it on the kitchen counter, weighed down by his keys so it wouldn't slide away. Then she picked up her bag and walked out. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. No slam, no echo dot outside. The air was cool and clean. She stood on the porch for a moment, feeling the ground beneath her feet, reminding herself that she was allowed to go. She didn't look back. He came home earlier than usual. The house greeted him with stillness, but not the comfortable kind. The lights were off. No music. No familiar sounds of her moving about. "Susan?" He called, then stopped. She hadn't answered to that name in years. He tried again. "Hey, I'm home." Nothing. He noticed the absence before he saw the note. The coat missing from its hook. The dining chair pushed in neatly, as if someone had taken care to leave things orderly. His chest tightened. The note caught his eye. He read it once. Then again. The words felt calm, measured. That frightened him more than anger ever could. He set the note down slowly, as if it might shatter. Her suitcase was gone. The house felt suddenly unfamiliar, as if it no longer recognized him. He walked from room to room, touching things as if to confirm they were real. The bed still made. Her side undisturbed. The faint scent of her lotion lingering in the bathroom. He sat on the edge of the bed and pressed his palms to his knees. She hadn't threatened. She hadn't begged. She had simply chosen. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his recent messages, work, meetings, reminders. No. Unanswered calls from her. That was when it hit. Him. She hadn't been waiting for him to notice. She had already decided what she would do if he didn't. He sat there for a long time. The note folded and unfolded in his hands. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you." The realization settled slowly, heavily. He had not lost her in a moment. He had lost her over years. And now, for the first time, he understood that she might not be coming back. The first night alone was the worst. Not because the house was empty, but because it wasn't. Everything still carried her imprint. The indentation on her side of the bed, the faint scent of her soap in the bathroom, the lamp she always turned off before sleeping, even when he forgot. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar quiet. He reached for his phone twice, put it down both times. At midnight, he got up and walked through the house, turning on lights he didn't need. In the kitchen, he stood in front of the counter where the note had been, touching the cool surface as if the words might still be there. He replayed conversations in his head, moments he'd brushed past, times she'd paused, waiting for him to notice something in her voice. He hadn't. He sat at the dining table and opened his laptop, intending to work. The screen glowed back at him, blank and useless. Instead, he opened his voicemail. Her voice filled the room, warm, familiar, slightly amused. "Hey, it's me. I know you're busy. Call me when you get a chance." The message was old. He had never returned the call. There had always been time later. He played it again, then another. Then another. Small things, updates, quiet check-ins. No drama, no urgency. Just her reaching out, his chest tightened. This was what regret sounded like. Not loud, not cinematic. Just the echo of moments he'd assumed would repeat forever. The next morning, he woke early, disoriented, reaching instinctively toward the empty space beside him. His hand met cool sheets. Reality arrived all at once. He showered and dressed without care, grabbing the first shirt he found. At work, he moved through meetings in a fog, nodding when required, answering questions on autopilot. "Are you all right?" a colleague asked at one point. "I'm fine," he said automatically. The lie tasted bitter. By afternoon, he couldn't sit still. He left early and drove through familiar streets without direction. Ending up near a park they used to walk together on weekends, he parked and sat in the car, watching couples pass by. Some talking animatedly, others quiet but connected. He wondered which version they had been at the end. Back at the house, he tried to cook dinner and failed. Burned the food. Left the mess. For the first time, no one cleaned up after him. The absence was instructive. That evening, he called her. It rang twice before going to voicemail. He didn't leave a message. The second night was quieter, more dangerous. The panic faded, replaced by something heavier. Understanding. He sat on the couch with a glass of water untouched on the table, staring at the blank television screen. She had asked to be chosen. He had assumed being there was enough. He thought of all the ways she had made space for him, adjusted her needs, smoothed over discomfort so he wouldn't feel burdened. He had called it peace. She had called it loneliness. The third night, he opened a drawer in the bedroom and found a scarf she'd left behind. Soft, familiar. He lifted it to his face without thinking. He sat on the bed and let the truth settle in fully for the first time. He loved her. Not in the abstract way he'd always claimed, but in the way that now hurt, and he had loved her poorly. Days passed. Then a week. He sent a message, careful and restrained. I'm thinking about you. I hope you're okay. She replied hours later. I am. I hope you are too. Nothing more. No warmth. No anger. Just distance. It unsettled him more than silence. He began to notice how often he'd filled space with work instead of presence. How easily he'd dismissed her quiet strength as self-sufficiency. He had mistaken her resilience for permanence. One evening, he stood in front of the mirror, studying his own reflection. He looked older, not from age, but from awareness. He rehearsed apologies in his head, then discarded them. Apologies asked for forgiveness. He wasn't sure he deserved it. What would he offer her now that wasn't a promise made too late? He sat at the dining table again, the same place she had placed the folder. He imagined her there, calm, resolved, no longer pleading. For the first time, he understood that love didn't fail loudly. It failed quietly, through neglect, through certainty, through the belief that tomorrow was guaranteed. He reached for his phone again, not to call, not to text. Just to look at her contact photo. And the question he couldn't escape finally surfaced. Clear and unavoidable. If he truly loved her, was loving her enough to let her go? They met on a Tuesday afternoon, not because it was romantic, but because it was practical, neutral, a time when neither of them could pretend it was nostalgia pulling them together. The cafe was quiet, the kind of place people chose for conversations they didn't want overheard. She arrived first and took a seat by the window, hands folded around a cup she hadn't touched yet. When he walked in, she felt it before she saw him. The shift in the room, the familiar weight of his presence. He looked different, not polished, not rushed, just present. He stopped when he saw her, as if unsure whether to approach. Then he did. Thank you for coming, he said. She nodded. Thank you for asking. They sat across from each other, the small table between them like a line neither was sure how to cross. I won't take much of your time, he began. I know you didn't ask for this. She studied his face, the tension around his mouth, the careful way he held himself, as though afraid any sudden movement might send her away again. Say what you need to say, she replied. I'm listening. He took a breath. I didn't understand what you were asking of me, he said. Not really. I thought love was staying, providing, showing up physically. I thought consistency was enough. She didn't interrupt. I see now that I confused reliability with intimacy, he continued. I assumed your strength meant you didn't need me in the ways you did. Her gaze softened, not with forgiveness, but with recognition. You assumed, she said quietly, that because I could carry it, I should. He nodded. Yes, there was a pause. Outside, a bus passed, the sound briefly filling the space between them. I'm not here to ask you to come back, he said. Not like this. Not without understanding what I broke. She exhaled slowly. I appreciate that. I loved you, he said. I still do. But I loved you lazily. Like something that didn't require attention because it had never left. The honesty landed heavier than any apology. She looked down at her hands. Do you know what hurt the most? She asked. He waited. It wasn't the long hours, she said, or the distractions. It was the way you never seemed afraid to lose me. He swallowed. I was, he said. I just didn't know it. She met his eyes again. Fear after the fact isn't the same as care in the moment. I know. They sat with that truth, neither rushing to fill the silence. I didn't leave to punish you, she said finally. I left because staying was costing me pieces of myself I couldn't replace. I see that now, he said. And I'm sorry it took your absence for me to learn. She gave a small, sad smile. I didn't need you to learn. I needed you to choose. He leaned back slightly, absorbing the words. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. And I don't expect another chance. I just needed you to know that I understand now. She nodded once. Thank you for saying it. They stood at the same time, instinctively. For a moment, neither moved. I hope, he said carefully, that whoever walks beside you next understands what it means to see you. She looked at him not unkindly, but without invitation. So do I, she replied. Outside the cafe, they paused again. The afternoon light cast long shadows on the sidewalk. I'm glad you're okay, he said. I am, she answered. And for the first time, the words felt entirely true. She turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing, she said. He looked hopeful without meaning to. I didn't ask for the truth, she continued. But I'm glad you told it. Just don't let it make you believe regret is the same as change. His expression sobered. I won't. She walked away without looking back. He stayed where he was, watching until she disappeared into the crowd. That night, alone again, he realized something that unsettled him deeply. Understanding her. Pain hadn't brought her closer, Dot. It had only clarified how final her leaving might be. She moved into the new apartment on a quiet Saturday morning. No ceremony. No witnesses. Just a few boxes, a rented van, and the steady help of a friend who asked questions only when invited. The place was smaller than the house she'd left, but it felt lighter. Sun spilled easily through the windows. The air smelled like fresh paint and possibility. She unpacked slowly, choosing where things belonged instead of defaulting to where they had always been. That mattered. By late afternoon, exhaustion settled into her bones, not the heavy kind, but the honest kind that followed intention. She sat on the floor with her back against the couch, sipping water and staring at the bare walls. Her phone buzzed. A message from him. Can we talk? Just once more. In person, she closed her eyes. She had known this moment would come. The final attempt. The last reach. After a long pause. She typed back. Okay, tonight. Early. They met at the park near the river. The one they used to walk when the kids were young and time felt more generous. The sun was already lowering, casting everything in gold. He was there when she arrived, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. He looked relieved when he saw her. Too relieved. Thank you, he said. She nodded. You said once more. Yes, he said quickly. I'll keep it that way. They stood side by side for a moment, watching the water move steadily past them. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he began. About us. About me. She waited. I know I can't undo what I didn't do, he said. but I can do better now. I am doing better. His voice caught and he steadied it. I don't want this to end without trying. She turned to face him fully. This didn't end because we didn't try, she said. It ended because I was the only one trying for a long time. I know, he said. And I live with that every day now. She believed him. That was the hardest part. I've changed, he said. Not because you left, but because I finally listened. She studied him. The openness, the humility, the absence of defensiveness. It was real. I don't doubt that, she said. Hope flickered in his eyes. But change, she continued, doesn't always earn return. The hope dimmed, replaced by something deeper. Acceptance, maybe, or grief. I love you, he said quietly now. Not the way I used to, better. She felt the truth of that settle in her chest. It hurt, not sharply, achingly. I love who I became after I left, she replied. And I can't go back to the version of myself who waited. He looked at her, eyes wet but steady. So this is goodbye. She considered the word. It's a release, she said. For both of us. He nodded, swallowing. If I'd loved you like this sooner. She placed a hand on his arm, stopping him gently. Don't finish that sentence, she said. It keeps you trapped in a past you can't fix. They stood there as the sun dipped lower, the river reflecting the last of the light. I hope you're happy, he said. I am learning to be, she answered. He stepped back first. Gave her space. That, too, was new. She watched him walk away. Shoulders squared, slower than usual, but not collapsing under the weight of it. When he was gone, she turned toward the path that led home. Not the house she'd left, the life she'd chosen. Later that night, alone in her apartment, she finished unpacking the last box. Inside it was a framed photo she'd almost thrown away, one of her laughing years ago. Eyes bright with possibility, she hung it on the wall. Then she turned off the lights and went to bed. For the first time in a long time, she didn't wonder what might have been. She knew, and she chose what came next. Months later, the seasons changed without asking permission. She learned the rhythms of her new life, the way one learns a new language slowly, with patience, with mistakes that no longer carried shame. Mornings became quieter. Evenings became her own. She cooked when she wanted to, ate when she was hungry, slept without bracing for disappointment. Some nights, memories still surfaced. Not the painful ones, the gentle ones. Laughter in the car, shared glances across crowded rooms, a hand reaching for hers in the dark, back when it had meant certainty. She let those memories pass. They no longer asked her to return. At work, she spoke more, took up space without apologizing. People noticed not because she demanded attention, but because she no longer shrank. One afternoon, while sorting old paperwork, she found the folder she had carried out of the house that day. It felt strange in her hands now, like evidence from another life. She opened it once, then she closed it and recycled the papers. Inside, the ring had been sold weeks earlier, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Some symbols belonged to the past, no matter how beautiful they once were. On a cool evening, she sat on her balcony, watching the city lights come on one by one. The air carried the promise of rain. Her phone buzzed. A message from him. I hope you're well. I wanted you to know I finally understand what you meant. Thank you for loving me when I didn't know how to love you back. She read it once, then set the phone down. She didn't reply, not because she was angry, not because she was cruel, but because understanding, once given, did not require response. Inside, she poured herself a glass of wine and stood by the window, watching the rain begin to fall. Each drop felt like punctuation, not interruption. She thought about love not as sacrifice, not as endurance, but as choice. A daily act, a mutual one. She smiled softly. Somewhere in the city, He was living with the lesson she had paid dearly to teach. And here, in the quiet space she had claimed for herself, she was living the reward, not of being chosen, but of choosing herself, top of form,